Yeah, yes. You have dialed us up on a good night. Good night. You've clicked us on. You've clicked us on. Nobody uses a dial anymore. You click us on. Thanks for clicking us on. I'm Jay Ryan. This lady over here, who you're here to see, is Nicole Ryan. This is the Late Night Playset. That's where we are. That's where we're doing this thing right now. That's what we call it. This is our kitchen counter. That's where I am right now. That's where you are right now. Thanks for being in our kitchen. It's this is the Carson Comedy Show. So please like and subscribe below. There's a bell you're supposed to ring. I don't know how it works, but I really appreciate it. It's supposed to be a good thing. You're gonna love it. Carson Comedy Show here in the Late Night Playset. Okay, tonight, not a whole lot of cars. We've been hitting cars pretty hard lately. Tonight, we have got comedy. I don't know how funny it's going to be, though. But we're going to be talking about comedy for sure because we have, I'm calling him a comedian. I'm not going to call him anything. Oh, and if you notice something new over here, yes. We've asked people, we've taken a poll, and the number two things that come to mind when people think of Carson Comedy Show here in the Late Night Playset are prizes and giveaways. That's absolutely right. So what we did is we got ourselves a prize wheel here, and we're going to be filling this prize wheel with each little thing here. We'll have wonderful merchandise and things to give away, and then we'll probably once a week be spinning this thing. Today, red wins. There's nothing on the red, but you see how that'll go in the future. So that's what we're going to be doing with the new. It's going to need a name, too. It's the Playset Prize Wheel for right now. And Rob KATES is here. So I'm calling him I can't do it. He's not a comedian. He may be funny. Lest you think he's a comedian, he's not. He's a comedy historian. He just came back from the National Comedy Museum in Jamestown, New York, the mecca of comedy, Lucille Ball's hometown. It's where the National Comedy Center is. He just went. He also has numerous Facebook groups with thousands and thousands of followers, all dedicated to comedy, late night, Johnny Carson, David Letterman. It's really all things that are in our wheelhouse here, Mike, me, and the missus. So did I mention Mike? He's here all the way back from the New York adventures. He's all the way up there in Canada, back home in his studio, home of the Letterman podcast, mind you. Hi, Mike. How are you, buddy?
I am delighted to be here. I miss New York, but that's okay because we're going to go back at some point. I am very happy to be here, though. This is I missed you guys very much while we were there.
Well, I appreciate that you missed us, but, well, first of all, I can't believe you're back because your wife made it sound like you were moving there or you had moved there. I know what that's like. But more importantly, you were very, very busy doing things while you were there. You were, like, really, really seeing people and making some of your childhood dreams come true, and we're going to be talking about that this evening.
A whole pile of them, Jay.
Whole pile of them?
A whole pile of them. A pile of dreams came true while I was there.
Oh, I can't wait to hear. The Instagram audience is here as well as our guest, Rob KATES. Rob, what part of the country are you calling in from?
I'm in Michigan. I'm just south of Lansing, Michigan, which is the capital.
Outstanding, outstanding, and home of the Mrs. Alma Mater there, Michigan.
No. It's Michigan State.
Ah, damn it, it's Michigan State. Shit. Well, all right, well, you guys can fight it out later. Anyway, Will, take it away. Start this show. 2 minutes, everybody. Back in 2 and 2. Last thing I Wrong one. Try to turn the bulbs off and I hit the smoke. Not the first time that's happened. All right, let's do this thing. Okay, good. Everybody's all set here. Oh, look, oh wait, it's too little. I made it small for transport into the studio. Whoops-a-daisy, too tall. Right. Oh my gosh, my desk is happening at once. There we go. So you see now it'll be at some point we'll be able to put things on there, and look how pretty. Oh my goodness gracious.
Gorgeous.
Now, well, whatever. We've got some grand ideas for things to put on the what do we call it, the Playset Prize Wheel.
I like it.
This is going to be our version of the old late show quiz machine, and we want to give stuff away. So that's why we're doing this.
That's
Let me
so
swing the people here. And then also people give us stuff all the time, and then people always want to give us stuff, and we never, whoops-a-daisy, we never can figure out a way to do it and all that, and it just became look, here's a device, here's a mechanism that helps us do it. Also, it really matches our set with this rainbow thing.
It does, and it makes sense. I like it.
I think it's ridiculous.
Of course, but so are we. Like, whatever.
I love it. Well, it is. Welcome back, everybody, for real this time. It is Thursday, October 20th, 2022. That's right, 2022, October 20th, 10/20/2022. Our guest is Rob KATES, and we're very excited because our friend, producer, and north of the border Letterman fan, zealot as Steve O'Donnell likes to call him, Mike Chisholm is back at home base. Mike, let's just check in with you first, buddy. How the hell are you? Give us a little bit of a synopsis on your trip and why the smile on your face might be a tiny bit bigger than usual.
Well, and we'll also do a cheap and shameless plug for the Letterman podcast, because tomorrow's episode that comes out, my special guest is the lovely and very talented, much more talented than me, Candace Chisholm. She's on the show, and we go through the entire trip together and talk about all of the things that we're allowed to talk about. And there's a lot. It was like an hour and 23 minutes, and I haven't even inserted the videos. We've got videos with some Letterman staffers that we took, and videos of the Colbert studio that are going to be inserted there. A video from the apartment of the legendary Don Giller.
I know the former Letterman studio. I'm just kidding. Hey, if you're doing something with Candace, you need one of these. You're not weird. You don't need the tag at the end. But I think you guys should host your own. I think you guys should host HeCast together. I think Mike should host the Letterman podcast, and I think he and Candace should, maybe not together every time, but at least it should be available.
That's a good idea.
She's so goddamn likable, and you'll all see when you watch tomorrow's episode. Sorry to steal your microphone again, Mike.
No, not at all. This is all great. I think there's a steel microphone joke in there. Oh, Irene Hoffman. She said earlier she's serious about that chair sponsorship thing. She's commented. There it is. Our chair chat. There it is. I'm very, very excited about having Candy on, because I'll tell you this. She was not prepared, because, I mean, she has, I don't know if it's quite put up is the right word, but it's close. She's put up with my Letterman enthusiasm. And I'll tell you this, us going to New York together and having the experiences that we did, she's a true believer. She fell in love with some of the things that we did, and listening to some of the stories. Our lunch with Walter Kim, she felt like she fell in love with a lot of this stuff, and she's gonna. That's very evident on the podcast. It's gonna be very exciting to see her, and she's so damn likable. Yeah.
It's weird how what you just mentioned happens. It's weird how that happens.
Yeah, I understood it.
Not that this one over here is in love with cars or Letterman at this point, but it's weird how when you give in, somehow the magic kind of. What was it for you?
The laughter that goes with it. It's not always funny per se, but it's still trying to be, and I laugh pretty easily sometimes, and I'll take it.
And that's very similar in our situation. And then, like, again, some of these people are so likable. Like, Candy fell in love with Rupert and May. And I mean, we've got lifelong friends there now. And it's not just
I
me
think you
having
already did, but
friends.
I take your point.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, the people are so damn likable, and just yeah, we had an absolute ball. I can't stop smiling. The trip was
Well,
so good, and lots of good stuff coming from it.
explain to me this. How was she with, you are, whether you realize it or not, you are entering a transition period, and I told you that it would come. She knows.
Yep.
I think you seem like you realize it and you're just handling it very well, but I'm going to say this stuff anyway. You are entering a transition period where, while you can still be a fan, you are also being allowed behind the velvet ropes, and there's no other way to describe it than a transition that occurs during that period, because part of the fan dies, not all of the fan, but part of the fan sort of almost has to die a tiny little bit to allow, just like anything in life, right? You got to get rid of something to make room for this other stuff. And the other stuff is so much better than whatever you thought you liked and loved before anyway. You just have to be strong enough and willing to, it's Indiana Jones, right? Take that leap by the lion's head. Anyway, how do you feel after this trip? Does anything that I just said make sense to you?
I'll tell you where it made sense to me, and I'm a bit like a broken record when it comes to this, but I talk about the lily pads that lead to where we're at now, and if there's probably 30 or 40 of them, and if one of those lily pads wasn't there, this whole thing wouldn't have happened at all. And you guys are a part of that, and there's many of them. One of the lily pads, and it's exactly what you're talking about, is my involvement in the professional wrestling business, because when I got into the wrestling business, when I was brought behind the curtain there, anything that you're talking about, any adjustment that needed to happen, any shift in thinking happened there. So for this stuff here, like I'll give an example, and I'll name drop, and I'll even throw out a little bit of point of pride here. Steve O'Donnell and I went out for a 4-hour dinner, and it started with an hour at his house, and then we went out to dinner for 3 hours. And
forgive me I'm not laughing that you went out to dinner with him, just so you know. I'm laughing because you called me right after this dinner while you were still walking like 50 blocks in Manhattan.
Yeah.
And this was one hell of a night. So please continue.
It was, and I was totally tipsy, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna walk back to the hotel, and it was over 50 blocks, and I kind of floated halfway, like it was so sublime. And I'll tell you this, half of that, if 3/4 of that conversation, I can't tell anybody, and I won't tell anybody. It was just, it was really beautiful, beautiful stuff. And I'm not saying it was sordid or anything like that.
No, it's just inside baseball stuff that Nicole likes.
Lots of, yeah.
Inside.
Yep, absolutely. And it was wonderful. To me, that only enriches the entire thing. And the enthusiast in me will not, it doesn't even, because I understand that everybody is fallible. There's nobody out there that's perfect. And when you're dealing with a family where you know, lots of flaws and things like that exposed, okay, our show has a mandate not to focus on any of that stuff. So it's really easy to leave that stuff at the door. And it hasn't been tarnished even a little bit, like not even a little bit, because you know, we're all accepting that people are just people. But oh my gosh.
Oh, interesting. I think I understand. I think you might have been taking it a different way, but what you just said is also very interesting and prolific as well. Were you thinking more on the lines of, you know, never meet your heroes, that kind of sort of situation, like don't get too close? Was that what you thought I meant?
I think that can happen when a fan goes behind the curtain and sees some things. That's certainly an element of it, but it's for me, that is all very measured. That certainly isn't and won't happen.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that with you. I'm not worried about it. By the way, none of this is a problem. It's all actually, I meant it in a positive way.
It is.
I meant
all
more
very
on
positive.
the lines of how you act, how one acts. You know, when you're at a certain age as a fan of a certain thing, and then you're in the room with the people who do the thing or whatever, and you know, when we're kids who make our proton packs and hang that shit on. And by the way, Mike and I are still adults who, I'm saying we're kids, but we're adults who do this type of thing. He collects sneakers, I build movie cars, but it's the same thing. He loves this room as much as I do. There's a whole different, I don't know, for some reason, there's something. You know what? I don't want to focus on this. It doesn't matter. I don't want to
Can
make.
I? Well, no. Can I say one thing though? Can I say
Please,
one thing about that?
Please.
Because I talked to Walter Kim on the phone when we sat down for lunch with him, it was comfortable almost immediately. When I surprisingly ran into Barbara Gaines, I was a blathering idiot. I was absolutely like, I even texted Walter back saying, "Oh my God, I hope she doesn't think I'm freakish," because I kind of tripped over my tongue, and it was really like we had a delightful conversation. But the next time I talk to her, I will be far more collected, and I think that that's probably part of what you were saying too. Is once you get
in there now.
The comfort level goes very quickly. It goes up.
You're in the pocket of what I mean now. There's a weird level of. Do you want to be a fan or a friend? You know, we said it was somebody, I can't remember who the hell it was. Somebody who was wicked famous. No, I know it was you, but it was somebody who was wicked famous. Where that came from, like Katharine Hepburn or somebody, as well, who had the same thing. Did you say it from your own?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, great. What's your story then?
Just my experience. Like, you can talk to famous people as if you're a fan of what they do, or if you're genuinely looking up for them like a friend. And that's different sometimes. I learned the hard way.
Yeah. Katharine Hepburn's story, I think it was in the Aviator movie, but it's something about, somebody was with her and said, "Oh, we're all at a dinner, we're at lunch or something like that." And she said, "Oh, can we all take a picture?" She said, "Darling, you can be a fan or a friend, but you can't be both." And it was absolutely lovely. It was like, you can be a fan and get your picture, but then you won't be invited to the next lunch, or you can keep coming to these lunches and just fucking be cool. Not have to show your friends the picture of Katharine Hepburn or whoever it was. Might have been Nicole.
I'm sure it's not new, but I don't remember that movie.
I know. You like Leo, though. Always surprises me you don't know that movie. Anyway, I am so damn happy for you. So I guess some of the stuff we're probably not going to be able to talk about tonight because you'll be doing it on your show tomorrow.
We could talk about anything you want tonight.
Right.
It doesn't matter if it's on the show, because when it's on the show, it's a different dimension because Candy's sitting right beside me and
good.
giving her 2 cents. And so, I'll talk about anything you guys want tonight.
Good. Because
no
I'm
problem.
thinking, we got our friend Rob over here. I'm thinking the moment I'm done with the business and we just open this up, I feel like it just becomes a big group chat where everybody hang on. I don't know what's going to happen. Does that make sense to you?
I can't wait. Rob and I already have that rapport anyway. So let's go for it.
He's like, I can't wait. Get on with it. All right, I hear you. Good note. Good note. With that push from our producer, I will now bring us to the business portion of the program. Let's see. Our friend Adam Ferrara is he's in my neck of my hometown, Uncasville, Connecticut. He's at the Mohegan Sun. I'm not from Uncasville, but it's up there in Connecticut, small state. He's at the Comics Roadhouse this weekend. Tonight through the 22nd. Our friend Guido Cocomello has his live comedy special taping at the Marconi Auto Museum this Saturday, the 22nd. Also happening this Saturday here in Pasadena, if you're a Porsche fan. We got cars and comedy here. Zuffenhausen is happening at Pasadena City Hall. It was our friend Jack's creation. Jack was on the show talking about it. Jack, from Mad Scientist from Scientific. Also, your only source for officially licensed Late Show with David Letterman merchandise is, of course, the Hello Deli. Oh, well, shit, I'm really fucking duded up today, aren't I? Excuse my language. Gee whiz. Well, I'm just you know what? And I couldn't help but notice Mike's shirt there earlier as well. Rupert, we love you. Oh, that's hilarious. Anyway, your only source for officially licensed Late Show with David Letterman merchandise is the Hello Deli. Visit Rupert online at hello-deli.com and tell him, when you're ordering your merchandise, of course, that Nicole says hello, because not only does he love Nicole, but oftentimes Nicole can't because
I have a mess.
I tricked her up, and she did very well done. Well done. Well done. Oh, man, I thought I was going to trick you on that one. That was great. I think you're getting better.
I'm learning to slow down and be okay with that. It's really hard.
It's working for you. Hey, we talked about Selma in the middle of the business. Let's talk about MS. We talk about Selma Blair, but she left the Dancing with the Stars. She's a star who left the Stars. Never. I think it's an incredible accomplishment that she was doing it. When Jamie Lynn Siegler was here, we were, at that time, whenever that was, 2-3 years ago, before she moved to Texas, whenever Jamie Lynn Siegler was on that show, we were talking about Selma Blair. And it was at a period where she was like, couldn't walk, couldn't talk. It was not far from where you are now.
A different place, country, getting her immune system cut out, basically.
Oh, she did that thing? It wasn't, I thought she did stem cell. It was an immune rejuvenation.
She reset everything.
Ugh, that's got to be like a weird. Like, hey, let's make you allergic to everything and now nothing.
Yes. It's like what I've heard they do with cancer, with chemo.
Well, if that's the result and it works, then holy cow.
People are looking at it logically now, whereas before it was like, who knows?
Sorry, we don't know. Yeah, we're busy with cancer over here and AIDS and stuff.
Yeah.
HIV. Can you still say AIDS?
I
hope
think
it's
so.
I didn't mean to offend anybody. So once again, say hi to Rupert at the Hello Deli. Sorry about that. Byron Bowers this weekend is next weekend. Byron Bowers, 10/28 and 10/29 is at the Riot in Texas, Houston, Texas. Go see our friend Byron Bowers. Also, his special on Hulu is hilarious. Check it out. Oh my gosh, Born for Fast toy drive. Born for Fast is a guy named he's a little kid named Sebastian. He's in a wheelchair. He's got, I don't know how to pronounce it, but brittle bone disease, like from the movies where he just breaks everything. He walks around, he breaks everything. So he's in a wheelchair, so he doesn't break everything, but he still breaks everything. And this little kid, forget that he's fragile and that he's got these health concerns. He is so inspirational, so energetic, so positive, so loving, so giving, so sharing. He is the one behind this toy drive, Born for Fast. Born 4, number 4 is his Instagram. And that's happening at the Marconi Auto Museum November 5th. I had a big, long conversation with John Marconi today about it. So that's why I'm telling you now, and I'm going to be pushing it hard for the next month. Awesome. He's a great little kid who is doing amazing things in this world, and a toy drive is a good thing, period. So there you go. And then now, okay, our favorite commercials here. St. Clair Insurance, read card. This, they say... Get some fucking serious here. Stop swearing. All right. They say all which separates men and boys is the coverage for their toys. What types of toys are we talking about today, Mrs. Ryan?
Entertainment stuff and collector cars usually. And anything you want to insure.
It's a good point. I like that you started with entertainment today because we're in the comedy portion. That was very smart of you. You're right. That's right. That's right. You are correct. Whoops-a-daisy. Who's here? Yep. Licensed in most states, St. Clair. You're going to need to get all those toys covered. You needed the insurance. St. Clair Insurance is the top provider. You're going to want to. Here's where it happens. Shop top providers. No, here's the ding. I feel like I got drunk before the show. Here, let me just. Sorry, everybody. Licensed in most states. Just go to the blue card. It's written right here. St. Clair Insurance shops top providers so you get the best coverage for your toys. St. Clair Insurance is available online by going to coverageforyourtoys.com. Coverageforyourtoys.com.
Coverageforyourtoys.com.
You don't have to pay for that one, Jeff. That one was free. I'm sorry. I think he paid twice for the golden dildo one, so I think this one's free. Sorry about that.
Say hi.
Coverageforyourtoys.com. Tell him Nicole says hello, because oftentimes...
I cannot.
That's right. And finally, our friends at Series 1 Films have written this card for us to read now. This episode has been brought to you in part by Series 1 Films. Series 1 Films would like to know, are you going to SEMA? If so, Series 1 Films can help your brand be seen with content and press releases designed to get you customers. So if you'll be at SEMA this year, send them a DM and check out series1films.com to see how they can scale your automotive business. Let me show you a video they made about GVBC. It's only a few seconds long. Roll it out. Yep. It's official. Jay's lost it. Tonight's the night. We didn't know when it would happen. We knew it would happen eventually. Who knew? Mark the calendars. 10/20. 2022.
Great.
This wheel is freaking me out. Having this wheel here, I think it's a great idea, but it doesn't need to be there the whole time. I think maybe I'll just move it for now. Oh yeah, much better. Is that better? Yeah, maybe it's better. Is that in my purview? Whew, yeah, I think it is better. It was crowded me out the window here. I couldn't see it. This view over here is one of my favorite things about doing the show. This beautiful view. I'm sorry, we're losing our shit. Okay. Did we do all the stuff here? Let's see. Hello's new toy. Just moved the new toy. VTR did that. Business read that. Canadian feed. We did that. Kind of caught up with that. This brings me to our guest. Jesus. Rob, I don't know. Here's the thing. I don't know much about this guy other than that I love his online presence. He hosts and runs a lot of Facebook groups that really are the only reason I'm on Facebook these days. Topics I love. Letterman, Carson, late night in general, comedy in general. Very, very knowledgeable. Seems to chime in on all of the other groups that I'm fans of. He's been on the Letterman podcast a number of times, right? I think are you the only, or at least twice. The first repeat. So I'll just say welcome, Rob KATES. Thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, it's great to be here. Definitely, as you mentioned, I love the Facebook groups, lots of entertainment-oriented stuff and comedy-oriented stuff and anything. That's why I like your show. Anything to do with Johnny Carson, David Letterman, late-night comedy, entertainment, anything like that.
Wow.
And cars, too. I'm a big car buff also.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Well, I know that you often chime in with different museums that are in your area. What is it, the Gilmore Museum is by you?
Yeah, the Gilmore Museum is in a small town called Hickory Corners, Michigan. Of course, being in Michigan, there's a lot of car museums, car shows, and things like that. In the Detroit area, there's the Henry Ford Museum. In Lansing, which is right close to me, there's the R.E. Olds Transportation Museum, the founder of Oldsmobile. That was all started in Lansing, Michigan. So, I'm a big fan of classic cars, especially like Depression era cars, like Duesenbergs and Auburns, Cords, Packards, cars like that are really my favorites.
The cars they made when they weren't making cars.
Yeah, well, and there's another great car museum too. Auburn, Indiana was the home of Auburn and Cord and Duesenberg. And if you go there, they have a lot of those on display, all three of those cars, which were beautiful luxury cars, and Duesenbergs especially in the Depression era. The Duesenberg was the ultimate luxury car. It's like Gary Cooper had one, Clark Gable had one. A lot of the biggest stars of the day had Duesenbergs.
Have you ever met Leno?
No, never.
Or talked to him in any way?
No, I would love to. It'd be fascinating to see his garage, that's for sure. I know it's at the adjacent to the Burbank Airport.
Yeah, it's right up I'm glad I moved that wheel because I can point to it from here. It's right up that street right there. It is literally only a couple blocks from our studio where we sit now. But I just feel like you could probably maybe even have a better conversation with Jay Leno about cars than I could because we were here and we talked, let alone comedy, obviously. But cars-wise, I guess he's from the Boston area, but for some reason, maybe that movie he did was in Detroit. Yeah, for whatever reason, he celebrates Detroit, American Muscle and all that stuff. I don't know. I feel like you guys could probably have quite a conversation.
I don't know. That'd be fascinating. Yeah, I love the CNBC show. Jay Leno's Garage is an outstanding show. And Letterman has said that back in the day at the Comedy Store, Leno was the man. And in the 70s at the Comedy Store, Leno was the best stand-up who was there. Dave still says that. Dave said that when he did Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee with Jerry Seinfeld, that Leno is really the man when it comes to stand-up comedy. I was never a huge fan of Leno as a late-night host, but I'm a big fan of his CNBC show, that's for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. definitely agree with that. I feel like, do you ever get, maybe this is the question, yeah, do you ever get out to Los Angeles?
No, no, I haven't. Last time I was there was when I was in college at Michigan State University. I know Nicole went to our quote unquote enemy, University of Michigan, so I hope she doesn't hold that against me. But yeah, I was at Michigan State. We went to the Rose Bowl, and 1988 Rose Bowl. I was in the Spartan Marching Band, and that was the last time that I was in Los Angeles. And we beat USC, by the way, 1988 Rose Bowl. Michigan State was victorious. So yeah, all those years ago, in 1988, we went to Universal Studios tour, which I know is not far from where you are, and went to Hollywood, went to Chinese theater and some of the touristy stuff like that. But no, I haven't been to LA at all since 1987, 88.
Well, if you ever find yourself out here, I would like to facilitate some way for you to get over to our friend's garage that's right up the street here. Whether he's there or not, it seems like something you'd be into, and
That'd be super fun.
yeah, I'm just from talking to you here, I'm getting a feel for why you like museums and why I'm calling you a historian, because you do seem to kind of, he has that kind of you seem to have that kind of a brain.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it would be fascinating to meet Jay. I think it's something like 6 or 8 airplane hangars that he has full of cars and also motorcycles. And I think it was you, Jay, that had mentioned that Letterman has a bunch of cars stored at one of the airports. At least he did back in the day. I think maybe Santa Monica Airport. Letterman had a bunch of cars stored there.
These days, a lot of car guys do. Spike Ferriston, Jerry Seinfeld, a lot of other people who aren't public do. But the first guy supposedly was David Letterman at Santa Monica Airport. That's the way Spike tells it. I've heard it from a couple other people as well. He was the first guy to do it over there. But he doesn't anymore, to my knowledge, or maybe I don't. He just isn't out here in Los Angeles often enough, I would think. I know this to be true. I'm not going to say what airport, but I know this to be true of an East Coast airport where he currently has cars. Very, very insanely close to where I grew up. Surprise. And I didn't do any sleuthing to find that. I was watching some other thing, and I was like, oh, know where that is. Yeah, so I think he's still doing the same thing, maybe just different geographical location. But still airport. There's a lot of benefits to being at the airport. If you ask Leno, and you've done your homework, by the way. I'm impressed you knew it was more than one building. It is like the whole block. But as Leno tells it anyway, he is covered by Homeland Security somehow because of the bordering with the airport.
I was going to say it's a different kind of security that you're afforded by being at the airport.
Yes, yeah.
Just by nature of going near an airport, it's a different level.
I think it's that simplicity, yeah, of like, oh, no shit's going down around here. So I think that it seems to be perhaps an extra secure place to store your expensive belongings.
It's a good bit.
Yeah, and you'd mentioned Spike Ferriston too. I'm a big fan of his as well, and I know that you've had him on your show. And I figure when I first learned about your show, I figured, well, Spike would be the ultimate guest because he's into cars, he's into comedy. He wrote for Seinfeld. He had his own late night show, and he's into all of that.
I thought the same thing, and I still. I mean, he's done it twice now. I would like him to do it again, especially now. I just saw him the other day. He did Howie's show. It's great. If you get a chance to watch it. It's great. It's great. He did so well. Like when Lieberman was here the other day, we were like, Spike is such a great talk show guest. He's like the best talk show guest. He's got good stories. He's very it's not that he's not like this in real life. Of course he's fine, but like I don't know, man. I liked him on this other show, and I was like, geez, I want to see more of these two together. Howie was feeling it too. Howie was really digging it.
Mindell?
Yeah. Lieberman. Howie Lieberman.
I want to make sure because Howie
right.
Mandel doesn't always get along with people.
You're right.
So it
was on Howie's show, which, the one with his daughter, and it's pretty good. But anyway, I agree with you completely. I would like to have him again. The only thing that's weird is when I invited him the first time, and by the way, I thought the same thing you did. So when we first started this, I wanted to wait until we were good enough to have someone like Spike because for a couple of reasons. One, you want to honor the thing that they used to be a part of, but two, also like it's very easy to get made fun of by doing what we're doing, and he's really good at that, professionally speaking.
Yeah.
Kramer's Apartment, type stuff. So we were kind of like, we wanted to get to a certain level, and then when I invited him, he said, I said, hey, listen, would you ever think about doing it or whatever? He goes, oh yeah, well, I got to come visit the set, right? And I was like, oh, cool, awesome. So he is kind of into it a little bit. And then both times he did it, it was via satellite.
Yeah. It'll be fun to have him here.
Well, I don't know. I hope he does it at some point, but I agree with you. Long way to say, yeah. Sorry. I'm going to put the coffee down. Back to water.
Can I interrupt real quick?
Please.
Please.
Just because I don't know how long he's going to be here. Our friend Reggie Watts is here. He bought a badge.
Oh, buddy. Thanks, pal.
He said that he's not on 9/11, and I assured him that he's a turbo no matter what the number. We just appreciate him so much. So Reggie, I think, is here right now watching us.
Oh, thanks, buddy. I love you, buddy. Love you. He was, you know what? I think he's in Montana with his mom, perhaps? Maybe. He's been doing some traveling. He was in Salem, Massachusetts, doing all the what do you call it? Not the witch hunt, but all those haunted tours and stuff. Cool. Anyway, Rob, sorry. Back to you. Gee whiz. So we're going to get you hooked up with Leno at some point. How on earth did you get into we'll skip cars for another time. How the heck did you get in? How the heck did you get into comedy, and why so deep? Why did it bite you the way it bit me and Mike?
Well, I don't know. I've just always been obsessed with television, movies, music. I had talked to Mike before on his podcast about the fact that I really, really admire people who work in the arts, whether it's somebody who's a singer or a dancer or an actor or a director or anything like that. I've got a brother who's an outstanding piano player. He's made his living as a piano player. Our family's always been very musical and just into entertainment. My dad was a huge influence on me. He passed away about 2 years ago. But my dad was born way back in, thank you, he was born way back in 1931. And so he really got me into some of the people that he was into. He got me into Johnny Carson. My dad got me into Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., Dean Martin. My dad really idolized, just some of the radio people back in the day, Jack Benny and Fred Allen. And of course, he loved the Honeymooners and Jackie Gleason and all that. So
you're talking my language. You said, was it your dad 31? Is that what you said? 30,
no, my dad was born in 1931.
Yeah, my dad was 39, born in 39. So I have a feeling that even though it's 8 years apart, we were getting the same feed of entertainment and information. So that perhaps is why we align. Sure.
Yeah, and I mean I've got a Facebook group that's all about the Rat Pack. It's just called Memories of the Rat Pack. And so my favorites are Frank and Sammy. And by the way, I just loved it when you had Tom Dreesen on your show, and Mike had Tom Dreesen on his show. And to hear him talk about working with Frank and Sammy and Dean, and that's incredible. But this Memories of the Rat Pack group has grown faster than my other groups. Memories of the Rat Pack has over 25,000 members, and that's the biggest of all the groups that I administer or co-administer. Yeah.
Is it? It's that mass appeal. I mean, music has timeless appeal. Is that what it is?
I don't know. I was gonna ask what
do you think?
about.
What do you attribute that to, Rob?
I don't know. Yeah, probably the mass appeal, and of course, I mean, the Rat Pack was 5 different people, so we do get fans of Frank, Sammy, Dean, and to a degree, Joey Bishop and Peter Lawford, although they're not as popular as the main 3. But and also maybe it's the demographic. A lot of older people are on Facebook, and I think a lot of people. I'm 53 years old, so a lot of people who are older than me, maybe in their 60s or 70s, are probably. I know that they're on Facebook more than they are on Twitter or Instagram or social media sites like that.
It's like the simplest explanation. I didn't even think of that. Demographics, yeah. Makes sense. Good grief.
Yeah, that's probably a big part of that, yeah.
Huh. Honeymooners. Do you have a favorite episode of The Honeymooners? That was such a good show.
I don't know. I don't really know of a favorite episode, but yeah, as far as my generation, I really got into Jackie Gleason when he was in Smokey and the Bandit.
Oh
'Cause
my
that's
God!
right in my wheelhouse. I just idolized Burt Reynolds. And by the way, Burt Reynolds was born in Lansing, Michigan. How about that?
Oh, hilarious! Small
He was.
world. Yeah, no, I'm with you. Buford T. Justice, all the way.
Yeah. Yeah, just Burt Reynolds, Jerry Reed. I mean, yeah, the semi, the Trans Am, just everything about that movie. And yeah, that was right in my wheelhouse. That it came out around the same time as Star Wars. I'm a huge Star Wars buff too.
You are interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So most people I know are kind of Cars or Star Wars. I don't know a whole lot of people with the overlap. I guess Mike's a little bit of got to overlap right there. Yeah, he's into both.
I like a ton of overlap there. And by the way, my favorite episode of The Honeymooners is when Ralph said, "To the moon, Alice," whichever one that was.
Hilarious. Funny guy over here.
Yeah, no, I love the Cars. I love the Star Wars. I love I love all that stuff too. Absolutely. Have you guys seen the new Camaro where they're channeling the Trans Am, the Smokey and the Bandit Trans Am?
I haven't seen that. I have seen the new Mustang. They came out with an electric Mustang or whatever the heck. It looks like a Camaro. I don't know about that. Rob, have you seen the new Camaro, Smokey and the Bandit car?
No, I haven't seen that, but I know that a lot of the car companies are kind of doing throwback models, like with the Dodge Charger and the Camaro. Some of them are kind of the throwback to the classic days of the muscle car era.
Yeah, Mike, I don't know if it's the same people. There used to be somebody, Code 1 or Series 1? I can't remember. About 10 years ago or so, there was somebody who was taking street Camaros and then doing those little facelifts to make them both Pontiacs and Oldsmobile. No, it can't be Oldsmobile. Anyway, maybe it was just the Pontiac, but whatever. They were doing a couple of them and doing exactly what you're talking about. If there's a new version of that, I'm into it.
Yeah.
He's looking
Oh, there it is.
Wow, I like it. I mean, that's good. That's a good modern interpretation. Does it say who the company is that's doing it?
The Shaker and no, I have to do a little bit more research.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay.
But anyway, yeah, it feels like it's stock. I don't know. It feels like Chevy's doing this, but I could be wrong.
Well, but it would be Chevy who has to then pretend they're Pontiac, right? Because it was a Pontiac, even though they're both GM. Trans
Am SE Bandit Edition, based on the bones of the 5th generation Chevrolet Camaro. Oh, Trans Am Depot. They're called Trans Am Depot. That's who it is.
Oh, they're good. That's where you want to get your. You go to. If you're looking for a Trans Am, everybody knows you get your ass over to Trans Am Depot. What did Dave use?
Pontiac's not even making cars anymore, so it is kind of it's GM, but yet it's called a Pontiac, I would guess. But yeah, Pontiac, like Oldsmobile and like Hummer, those brands got shut down.
Yeah. Well, and they brought Hummer back. And then if Dave were here, he would remind you to come to Harrison Ford, where we'll treat you right. Come on down to Harrison Ford, where we'll treat you right. Bring your wife in, we'll dick her. Oh, sorry for my language.
Oh, you got a visitor.
Oh, I bet she's happy to have you guys back.
Yeah, she's very happy. Hey, did Mimi and Pa bring you some presents from New York?
Yeah.
Yeah, what did we bring you?
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay. Don't. Okay.
Don't. Oh, she's adorable.
Sorry, she just wanted to come and say goodbye.
I think it's lovely. There's nothing. I mean, Rob, should we go through the books on your shelf? I see here's Johnny up there. I see the Rolling Stone issue from 1992, maybe 1990. I remember owning that.
It was
What year is that
somewhere
from?
right around in there. Yeah. I think that is the ultimate Rolling Stone cover. I've never been a huge Rolling Stone fan, but man, when I saw that they had the sense to have Johnny and Dave on the cover, I was like, boy, I've got to get that one.
That was when late night was like really happening, man. That's when you and I and so many of us were just consuming it. It was so great. Throwing shit off the
Yeah,
windows.
I thought it was incredible. You go back to 1988 until 1992, I think was was the ultimate late night lineup because you had Carson followed by Letterman, and then you had later with Bob Costas, which was an outstanding show too.
Agree, and it was the best that show was. Like that show was on for a lot of years, and there was a couple years where it was really good, and those were the years for sure. They're still trying to plug Costas into something.
Yeah. I keep seeing him popping up, and it's like, what's up?
I heard a rumor a long time ago that, and I guess it would have to be true, that Johnny's standing on an apple box for that shot because Dave's 6'2" and Johnny's not.
That is true. Yeah, there's in my Facebook group, the Johnny Carson fan club, there's a guy that's in that group who was actually Johnny's publicist at NBC for a while, Charlie Barrett, and he was actually interviewed on the Carson podcast by Mark Malkoff, and he confirmed that. He was there at that photo shoot, and he said, yep, Johnny was a bit shorter than Dave, so yeah, Johnny had to stand on something so that they would be the same height. But if people want to, I'll put in a plug for a Carson podcast, even though it's not, it has ceased production, but Carson podcast was incredible, and Letterman podcast is incredible too, but I listened to every episode of the Carson podcast, and I thought that Mark just did an amazing job with that over the years.
What, just focusing in just on Dave alone, what would be your favorite era of Dave?
Well, I tend to lean towards the NBC era, the late night era from '82 to '93. Not to say that there weren't great things on the Late Show. Then from the Late Show era, I think my favorite thing. I'm envious of Mike for meeting Rupert because my favorite things in the Late Show era was when Rupert had the hidden camera and the earpiece.
Oh, the headset. So
Dave,
good.
Yeah, Dave would tell him what to say. That was so funny. And I don't know how on earth Rupert was able to keep a straight face.
Dave, I don't have enough money. That was my favorite.
That's right. Yeah, he went to McDonald's and Rupert said, and Dave was telling him what to say, of course. Rupert said, I'd like to have a quarter pounder, a half pounder, a 3/4 pounder, and a pounder.
And a pounder.
Yeah. It was so funny. But yeah, I think, from 82 to 93, the late night era, it was a smaller studio. It was more intimate. Dave would say, oh, I got this nickel and dime dog and pony show. And it was just groundbreaking, and it was unusual. It was crazy. He had people like Harvey Picar on there, or he'd have Brother Theodore, or just these really off-the-wall guests. And part of that came from Johnny, because Johnny wanted the show after his to be different than what his was. So he wanted the band to be smaller. Johnny did not want a carbon copy of his show following his own show on NBC. So that kind of forced Dave to be different, and he really was. He was groundbreaking.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes constraints can really create some magic. I'm so glad you brought up Harvey Picar. From the Human Interest guest column, Harvey Picar is without a doubt, my absolute favorite guest from that show ever.
He's the coloring book guy, yeah?
Yeah, well, yeah. His day job was he was a file clerk at the VA hospital, wherever he was from. But you're right. He also wrote guys, help me out here. Was it American Splendor?
Yeah, American Splendor, and they made a movie about it, too.
I love the movie.
The movie,
Tell us anything you know about that, Rob.
I can't really recall. It's been many years since I've seen it, but I just remember that they made a movie about it. I remember seeing it.
Hilarious.
Harvey was really unusual.
But Harvey Picar, you mentioned him being one of your favorite guests as well. Is there anything in particular? Because I liked that he was so odd. I liked that he came in while he was always trying to promote stuff, buy my doll, buy my comic book, buy my whatever. He came in with a total attitude and not at all. He was hostile. He came in hostile. And with that, I think the first time Dave liked it, and until it got a little too far, I think Dave loved it. And that's my take. I'm curious what your take might be.
Well, yeah, definitely. He was hostile. He was like the least starstruck person in the world. He was not like, oh, this is David Letterman. Oh, I gotta, this is the big time here. But And just some of the crazy things on that show. I mean, Crispin Glover comes on there and almost kicks Dave in the head, and you had the whole thing with Andy Kaufman and Jerry Lawler. I know Mike knows more about that than I do. He's the wrestling expert, but that was incredible. I mean, to see that stuff that went on with Andy and Andy Kaufman was just so crazy and off the ball, and it's like his whole show was just his whole life was like performance art.
Yeah, Andy's life, you mean?
Andy, yeah.
Oh, very much so. Were you an Andy Kaufman fan as well?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and when I was at the Comedy Museum in Jamestown, New York, they had some Andy Kaufman memorabilia there. They had his Elvis suit that he wore. They had his intergender wrestling belt and some of his notes
that he created,
things like that. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
They had a card that was on his door when he did the Tonight Show with Johnny, and the card basically said, "Do not disturb me until such and such time. I am inside and I am meditating, and I need to have silence. And my meditative time is very important to me." And I didn't realize that he was into meditation, but I guess that he was. That was on his door when he did Johnny's show.
Yeah, big time. Did you see that movie, Man in the Moon?
Yeah, many years ago, but yeah, it was fascinating.
Highly recommend a rewatch on that one if you're into comedy. It really is great. Jim Carrey is incredible. And then, since I'm throwing out recommendations, the Jim and Andy documentary on Netflix following it is amazing because you really get into what happened and how that all went. But being a fan of comedy and then also a historian, I've heard that they got a lot of the stuff really right in this movie because I think of Jim Carrey's or Andy Kaufman, whoever the persona was, because of the commitment to the whole thing. I think you would enjoy it, and I almost want to have you back to come on and talk just about that movie. But for today, I want to know more about Jamestown because I haven't been yet. I've been following it since it was an idea that they used to host things in the little town hall there before they built the museum and then now the theater and all. So. I love the place. I love everything they're doing, but I've never been. So I want to hear from somebody who has. What'd you think?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, it's the National Comedy Center in Jamestown, New York. It's western New York. It's about 90 miles south of Buffalo. So it's the far western portion of New York. Jamestown is not
conveniently located in Jamestown, New York.
Yeah.
Was it busy?
The museum was quite busy, but the town is not real big. The town is, I think, 30,000 people, so it's not very big. But it's great that the National Comedy Center is there. I thought it might be in New York City or LA or something like that. But also, as you had mentioned too, Jay, it's the hometown of Lucille Ball. So that's kind of one of their claims to fame. They do have a Lucy and Desi museum there, and there are some murals and lots of things that make reference to Lucille Ball. So that's another reason why that town is famous.
I want to go to that museum too because they got the old sets set up and everything, and it's so neat to see all of these things in color. We experience them in black and white through the television. And you think about those times. Oh yeah, Lucille Ball was just in black and white, but her hair was bright red. Neat. Yeah, and all the colors, the green dresses, and all these, the blue sofa, all the stuff you saw in person there, Rob.
Yeah, it's cool. They have the Lucy and Desi Museum. They have 4 or 5 complete sets. I mean, all of the furniture, all of the set pieces, all of the props and everything. And so I have a feeling that Lucy was probably very strict about, hey, don't sell this stuff to any collectors. They wanted to keep all of it there. But it's amazing. If you're a big Lucy and Desi fan, it's amazing the amount of memorabilia that they have there at that museum.
That's kind of the cool thing, not dissimilar to Letterman and his assets, even though they didn't want them and they went to the dumpster. Desi Lou was the production company, so they owned all of the stuff. So it's probably only preserved because they owned it. Otherwise, it would have been farmed out to 50 other shows and eventually thrown out.
That's a really good point.
Well, and Desi Lou produced a lot of other shows. I know that they did Star Trek. They did, I don't know the whole list of them, but Desi Lou was not just Lucy and Desi. They produced lots of other shows too.
You're exactly right, and I'm glad you pointed out that it wasn't just comedy shows. Star Trek, Lucille Ball is responsible for Star Trek. They said no. A bunch of people said no, and she funded it. And then it didn't turn out as well as they thought it would, as I understand the story. And then she funded another pilot, and then that's the one they picked up.
I love that.
Is that right, Rob? Something like that?
I think so, and I think that now that I think about it, I think that her company also produced Andy Griffith's show.
Yeah, that's it.
Of course, the big break for Ron Howard.
Yeah, a little bit.
And I'm a huge American Graffiti fan. I'm sure that you are too, with all the cars. And American Graffiti was just incredible.
Yeah, great cars and a great L.A. Type movie too.
Sure.
Where was that supposed to be? It's not supposed to be L.A., right? But I know there's a lot of L.A. locations in it.
No, well,
supposed to be like Middle America.
George Lucas grew up in Northern California, so maybe it's supposed to be one of the Northern California towns. It's one of the small towns.
I think you're right. I think that's what it is. Yeah, that makes sense. Like Marin County or something. I think you're right. Yeah.
I haven't seen that since I was really little.
That's got its own interesting story of George Lucas wanted to make these other movies, but the studios and everybody else was like, nah, why don't you just make one of these movies? Let's see if you can do this. And he was like, oh, okay. And then he went and did it, and it was American Graffiti. Was that before Star Wars? Is that what it was? He had to do that before Star Wars?
Yeah, it was. And boy, if anybody likes George Lucas, I saw on Disney Plus, they've got that series that's just called Light and Magic. And it's about his company, Industrial Light and Magic. They go back to the 70s and they talk to the people who worked on the Star Wars movies. But not only that, but some of the other projects that ILM did. They talk about like Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Raiders of the Lost Ark. They talk about Jurassic Park and lots of really interesting movies, and it's fascinating. I think it's like a 4 or 5 part series. It's on Disney Plus, and it's just.
I agree with you. We recommended it on here too. There's some Back to the Future stuff in there. There's a little bit of everything, and it's pretty fantastic. I'm not a Star Wars guy at all, but I found it fascinating to listen to how Star Wars got made through all those stories you mentioned.
It's fun to see what it's a part of, because there's so many things that it's touched.
Oh yeah, right.
It's the same
part
people
of culture
that did a lot of things really well.
Yeah, that's it. So you don't have to like Star Wars to watch that thing, because the people who made Star Wars then went on to make 50 other of your favorite movies that are also covered in this thing.
I was blown away with the Roger Rabbit stuff. Like, there's stuff you don't even think about.
Fun stuff.
And then there's the transition from, like in the 70s, it was people building models and people doing lots of stop motion animation and things like that. And then it got into the digital age, and some people were good at transitioning into the digital age. Some people still wanted to do things the old-fashioned way. And so that aspect of it was really fascinating too.
Where do you stand on that whole CGI versus practical effects?
Oh, I don't know. I think, well, there's great movies that have been made with both methods. But yeah, it's really an art to what some of those guys did, like in the 70s, when they're hand building the models for Star Trek, or for Star Wars rather, for the different Star Wars movies.
For all of the projects of that time, Ghostbusters.
Yeah, sure. Oh, definitely.
We just watched the Indiana Jones movies over because they're in 4K on the Apple TV and blah, blah, blah. It's new again, everybody. Anyway, incredible model making in that movie, and all of the practical effects that were done either in camera or whatever. It's a different way of doing things, and it was so impressive to me to watch this movie that's, 40 years old now? It's over that, 42 years old. I think it was 1980, something like that. And it looked better than some of the new movies I've seen. Some movies I'm with you, where they're just like, oh, okay, you stretched where you should. The new Ghostbusters is a pretty good example of that. I don't agree with every choice that was made. It's not my fucking movie. But they did a really good job of using digital effects and not too much of it. Like, oh, they used it where it's appropriate to use it. But if there was another thing they could use, they would do that instead.
Nothing was overdone. Nothing big like that became the story. They let it stand alone, which is cool.
If they threw in a big CGI Stay Puft Marshmallow Man at the end, and he was, dancing or whatever, doing the same thing from the first movie, but it was CGI and you could just see the difference, I feel like I would be, no. My authenticity meter would be like, bleh.
Same, and I know they'd sell that to be on every entertainment TV show. Like, no thing.
I mean, they did CGI all the little guys, but somehow it was whatever. Back to you, Rob. Sorry. Hey, Mike, you're a guy who likes a lot of these things that Rob's talking about. Do you have any stuff to talk to him about?
I love that doc as well, and to me, when George Lucas takes a lot of flack for what he did for the prequels, but at the end of the day, the prequels I think were necessary to get us to this place where we are right now, where you have a J.J. Abrams who appreciates everything and has all the tools available to him to use. So he makes the choice: no, we're going to shoot it on film, but we're also going to hybrid practical effects with also CG embellishments, or vice versa. And I think that's really, with the Mandalorian, and I'm sorry to talk so much Star Wars here, Jay, but with the Mandalorian, Favreau.
I asked you, buddy. Please do.
Well, I know, but I know you're not the Star Wars guy.
I may not understand it, but I'm listening.
Okay, so in the Mandalorian, there's a shot of Mando's ship coming into a planet. And Jon Favreau and those, there we go. There it is. And they rotoscoped it. They did what they did in New Hope because they just wanted to see if that effect was still around and effective. And it was so effective that they used it in the show multiple times. And I think you got to kind of, Jurassic Park is a prime example where they embellished with CG a mostly practical movie. And I think now we're just on the flip side of it, where there's all these tools that are available. And so long as that knowledge gets passed down, I think we can have the best of all worlds. And it's used, Ghostbusters, I think, is the best example of it, where it was used beautifully, all the different tools that were available. And I couldn't agree more with that.
Oh, man. Nice. Rob, where do you stand on the issue? Just kidding. Rob, I am delighted that you wanted to come on the show tonight, but I really feel like you should have your own podcast. Is that something that you've ever considered, or do you have one that I don't know about?
No, I don't have one. No, I've never really considered it. I guess I figured that I'm probably a better guest than I would be a host. But no, I've never done that. I do work in TV, but I work behind the scenes. But I've worked in TV since 1990. In master control as well as production for various TV stations. So, yeah.
How did I not know that till now?
I don't know. Yeah. I started back at Michigan State in 1990, and I've worked for many different stations, and I've been a director, I've been a studio camera operator, floor director, audio person at several different TV stations in the state of Michigan. Yeah.
How did you end up in the basement in master control? And is your master control in the basement? It usually is.
No, ours is not in the basement.
Okay.
When I was in school, I was really studying production, so I was really into directing, running audio, Chiron and floor directing and all that kind of stuff. Then I got a job up in Traverse City, Michigan, and they had a position there that was like half master control and half production. So I discovered that I really loved master control, really found it fascinating. And that was 91, 92. So Johnny Carson was still on the air. So we were running the local commercials for the Johnny Carson show for the Traverse City market, and Letterman too. So that was pretty cool. I was an NBC affiliate, back in 91, 92.
That's amazing. I mean, it's amazing given your interests that you found that little nook where you could be involved in some small way. That to me is so cool.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I do love the business. I've always been fascinated by TV, and just I know you've talked about, Jay, you grew up an only child and spent a lot of time alone watching TV. I was not an only child, but I have four brothers, and I'm the youngest. The next youngest is 8 years older. So it's kind of like being an only child. By the time I was in like fifth grade, all my brothers were off at college. So I spent a lot of time alone just watching TV and just kind of getting enveloped into that world of TV and movies and entertainment and all that. I would have loved to work for Letterman, behind the scenes, or Carson, work on their production staff. I would have loved that, but I've never lived in LA or New York.
Did you ever get to go to any Letterman tapings, either at the old place or the theater?
No, unfortunately not. No, I would have loved to.
Oh, what a bummer. Yeah, that just seems like right up your alley. What about Johnny or anything? Any shows other than the ones you've worked on?
I've never been to a TV taping in New York or LA. No.
Hilarious. That just seems crazy to me with somebody who's as into it as you are. Well, get your ass out here at some point so we can get you to. I know all the shows you would have wanted to watch have been out of production for 20 years, but come see this in person and Leno's thing, and we'll get you into, I don't know, something else.
Time.
Oh, you can go see Colbert because we got Reggie over it. No, that's not right. Not Colbert. What's it? It's Reggie's
Yeah, James Corden.
James Corden show.
I'm actually a huge James Corden fan. I think he's excellent. I really like what he's done with that show. I think he's really done some innovative, really funny things, especially when he goes outside the studio. And and Reggie's great too. He's so funny and does a good job with the music. I'd love to see James Corden.
Of all of the late night shows that are out now, and they're dwindling. I mean, there are still plenty, but there are fewer than there were a couple years ago. I feel like Corden is the most well-rounded show for me to watch. I don't really watch any of them. Take the really out. I don't watch any of them. I watch the clips every once in a while of our friend Reggie because we love him. But Corden, I don't know. There's something about. It's something about the show. It's not even just him. It's the way the whole show is put together. Those quarantine shows are when I found that show.
He feels
so good.
He feels the most real. Everyone else.
See, for me, it's not about him. For me, it's I don't agree with that at all. By the way, to me, he's the most.
It feels the least produced of the big late night talk shows.
Yes, and I don't know if it really is or if that's by design, but I totally agree with you, and that's what I meant during that the quarantine part. It was like they're playing it loose.
Yes, that's what I meant. I did say it right, but
Same. You said it fine. You said it fine. We're all just throwing our opinions in here. Mike, if you had to pick one of the current, the current landscape, is there a show that you would watch over another? It's not what's your favorite. It's just narrow it down.
Yeah. I've always liked Seth Meyers. I liked when he was the head writer on Saturday Night Live, and so there are some things on there that I enjoy. I love his bit, Stuff Seth Can't Say. To me, that feels like a bit that could have been on late night back in the day if late night was in the politically incorrect times that we're in, or politically correct times, I should say, that we're in now. I love little things like that he does. But I totally agree about Corden. I mean, if we're talking about a variety show that doesn't really get into politics and things like that, where there's just a lot of really creative things done, I think Corden probably leads the charge in that. And I've also really got a soft spot for Jimmy Kimmel. I always have.
Oh yeah, he's still great.
Yeah, he really is. And if there's
he's
anybody,
still great. I think he's great now. I think he's gotten so much better with age. Actually, the last few times I've seen him, he's just good. He's just very good at that job now.
I would agree. He seems a little more focused now, whereas before he was like, what's going on?
Yeah, he grew up in there somewhere for sure.
Agreed.
Yeah, 11:30 changed him, I think.
Yeah.
Very much so. Very much so. He's in the big time now. I think that, we talk about imposter syndrome sometimes. I think he had that for a while. I think he didn't take it. He took it up a notch. And whether it was when Dave retired or whatever it was, but up until he retired, Conan O'Brien was my guy. After Dave retired, I was religious in my watching of Conan, and I appreciate him so much. And I miss him right now. I wish that there was a Conan show on every night.
Do you do the podcast? Do you watch the podcast or listen to the podcast?
I love his podcast. It's fantastic. Yeah.
I feel like the podcast deal may have taken place of the HBO deal that was supposed to happen, the HBO Max deal. Because remember HBO Max and then Time Warner, they had. Oh, he's got some.
Eventually, he's going to be on HBO Max.
You think so?
Well, that's what he said. He said eventually, but he hasn't given a timetable for it.
Well, that's just it. This is my point. Yes, that was definitely the story, but I think, as sometimes things do in our business, things change, and the Time Warner deal that merger hadn't happened before whatever, it doesn't matter. But there's a lot of inside baseball business stuff that happened afterwards. And then Conan's deal with his podcast network happened afterwards, which is mega deal, $150 million at Sirius XM, Mike. Is that what it was?
Yeah, they partnered up with Sirius for $150 million. And then I think it's Discovery that's done the deal with HBO. And I mean, as that's happened, they have gutted entire divisions, apparently, like especially with the comic book movies and things like that they had planned are no longer planned. So I don't know if Conan's still in the hopper for that, or if he's pivoted and just moving over into this content on this side. But either way, he's going to be fine. I do really I was intrigued by the idea of a new variety show from the mind of Conan O'Brien. I hope that happens somewhere. That could be really zany and fascinating.
I do agree with you, but they're putting a lot of effort and money into this. You know, he did what everybody, like Howie did and Joe Rogan did. You know, you get yourself a little compound, you buy yourself a little warehouse building, and then you just build what you want and you have what you want to do. Everybody builds some little version of what we did here, you know. And Conan has built and put a lot of money into their little studio around the corner at the new Conoco headquarters or whatever. So it's one of those, I'm not sure it's one over the other either, but in our business, an announcement and then this much dark time without any kind of anything means just forget about it. Just forget about it. Just forget that ever happened. Just forget about it. Agreed?
Yeah, agreed. And it also means there's other connections that they're not making public, so no one knows anything yet.
Yeah. I think the HBO Max deal was a very nice thing to point to when your show's going off the air. Like, well, but we're going to be over here.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. Well, then it's not a big, goodbye. But Bette Midler doesn't have to sing,
It does quell the anticipation a bit.
Rob, any kind of inside knowledge all the way out there in Michigan? Do you have the inside track here?
Well, I just think it's amazing to look at Conan and what he's done with his career. I mean, in 1993, taking over for Letterman and just coming out of nowhere. I mean, yes, he had written for The Simpsons and he had written for Saturday Night Live, and he went to Harvard, and that's a very impressive resume right there. But then to look at somebody like Conan who didn't have a background in stand-up. He had never been a host before. He had a bit of a background in improvisation. I guess he had worked at the Groundlings in LA for a bit. But yeah, it's incredible to see what Conan has accomplished. And also, I think that you hear a lot about the 11:35 p.m. Eastern shows. They get all the glory. But look at the later time slot shows too, because some of those have been incredible. The 12:35 a.m. Eastern shows, Letterman, of course. Look at what Conan did in that time slot. Look at what Tom Snyder did. I think the 12:35 time slot shows have been incredible too. I mean, we mentioned James Corden. So I think that those shows are often overlooked, the later shows.
I see what you're saying. I won't agree only because I don't overlook them. I'm a creature of I found Letterman on late night first, so the 12:30 spot has always been my hour. But I think it's you can be a little weirder, you can be a little freer. You don't have to stand by the template, the American late night talk show template, which you kind of have to stand with at 11:30.
Yeah.
It's like everyone comes in thinking they're going to change it, and then little by little it gets backed into whatever it's supposed to be, and this is what America likes, and this is how the commercials go.
Sure, yeah, and Dave took some criticism for that, and definitely Jay Leno took a lot of criticism for that. People, I mean, if you watch Leno when he was on Late Night with David Letterman, when he was Dave's guest, his comedy was more cutting or more sarcastic or had more of an edge to it, and people feel like when he took over the Tonight Show from Johnny, his comedy was more milquetoast and middle America and kind of not as edgy.
Yeah, I've got a lot of theories on that. They go so deep. But, I mean, you're not wrong. But Jay Leno's been here, and when I asked him about it, his take was that when he would go on, I told him I thought that when he would do late night with David Letterman appearances, I thought that was the best both of them had ever been. I thought Dave was so great, Jay was so great. Like, I just love the Don's has a compilation, like a 4-part compilation. Shout out to Don Giller, everybody. There we go. Got one in. And when I was telling Jay how much I liked them together, and you know how good it was, and how I thought it was the best they had both been, his take was that he wasn't trying to be that way. He was this fancy TV show set, but he was with his buddy, so he wasn't taking it too seriously. He was able to, you know, Mr. Carson, you couldn't mess with Mr. Carson's tie or something like that. But Dave, you know, you can go mess with his microphone and futz with it and make him work a little harder. And I think, according to Jay, that's sort of what he was doing there. I don't know. Including him in the mix of how shows should be run, it's almost like he's a by the numbers guy. He's the affiliate handshaker. He's let's get these, you know, do all the metrics. And some of the other guys are like, but this is my personality. How do I, if you don't want me, it's more Larry Sanders, you know, how it's his imperfections that make him part of the thing. If you're just going to try to get all your metrics perfect, that's not you. You're not anybody. You're a robot. And that's what I consider the Jay Leno Tonight Show host to be. Not Jay Leno. Not Jay Leno. But the host that was Jay Leno. It was a machine. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, I think so. I don't want to beat up on Jay Leno. I mean, he's an incredible comedian, but just him as a late night host, I couldn't really get into his Tonight Show. And a lot of people figure, Dave should have taken over. But the thing is, look at what happened to Dave. I mean,
I don't think that would have worked either, by the way. I think everything worked out exactly how it was supposed to.
Fine. With Dave going to CBS didn't have a franchise in late night television before Dave that was successful. And Dave, you have the Late Show, you have the Late Late Show, and you look at Dave's contract that he got in 1993, which Peter LaSalle worked with him to put it together, and you compare that with Johnny's contract that he had in 1980, and they're very similar. I mean, both contracts
structurally.
Ownership, structure, So Johnny got control of the show that was on after his, which was David Letterman. Then David Letterman got control of the show which was on after his, which turned out to be Tom Snyder, who Letterman replaced back in 1982. So that's pretty incredible too to think about that.
You definitely have the encyclopedia. You definitely know all the stuff.
Yeah, I've studied it a lot. I'm a little bit too obsessed with it sometimes, but I've studied it a lot. I love it.
Can you think of a scenario? See, I've never heard anyone else say this, but in my mind, it was always a no-brainer for how it should have gone, and I never understood why it didn't go this way. And I think in Dave's and Camp Dave's head, they all thought, oh, if this is going to happen in any way, it would be this way. What made the most sense for me would, all right, so Dave, back in the 80s, did a good job guest hosting The Tonight Show, right? And that's how he got the attention of everybody, Freddie and Peter LaSalle and whatever. That's why they ended up liking him and making him guest host and then wanting to do a show with him. So I see exactly what you said. The guy in the 11:30 position controls the 12:30 chair. That makes perfect sense to me. So you're always auditioning somebody in the 12:30 chair for the person to take over eventually the 11:30 chair. Makes perfect sense. You hire Dave. Eventually, Dave moves up to 11:30 when Johnny retires. Then 12:30 is available for the next guy to come in. In the case of, if you're following the same model, it would be the Tonight Show guest host goes to 12:30. And the 12:30 guy moves up. He's now varsity at 11:30. It's like still makes the most sense to me, and like I can't believe nobody got it. But I've never heard anyone talk about that even having been considered at NBC. It's always Dave and Jay were up for the same job. I'm like, says who? Helen Kushnick? Fine, but nobody has confirmed who started that rumor. Rob?
Yeah, well, and the thing is, people say, oh, Johnny wanted Dave to replace him. Yes, he does. He did, but NBC apparently they didn't really ask Johnny about that. Just like with Dave, they didn't ask Dave about who they wanted to replace him, and they put Stephen Colbert in there.
Yeah, it wouldn't be his. That's not. Yeah, I mean, the moment the 11:30 person is not in that job anymore and they're not controlling 12:30, they don't really get to make any more decisions. I totally understand that, but it just seems like from a business standpoint, like before he left maybe if he didn't leave in such negative. They planted the story in the Helen Kushnick, not they. Helen Kushnick supposedly planted the story in the Times or wherever that Johnny's out and blah blah blah, and Jay's in, and that's the whole famous story where Jay called Johnny to say, hey, it didn't come from us, whatever, but supposedly it totally did, and he said, I know it did, Jay. Yeah, I don't know. It gets so muddied.
Okay, so there was a CBS executive as well, though, that I believe also threw a monkey wrench into this. I think it was Rod Perth, because CBS was courting Jay Leno as well, and so
you're right about Rod Perth. Rod Perth and the English fellow
Howard Stringer.
Yeah,
and who we're trying to get on the show. There's a chance we're going to get him on the show. Yeah, it's being worked on right now.
Howard Stringer? What's he doing now? I've heard he sold furniture or something.
He's 80, happy 80-year-old Welshman, and I think we're about 60% about getting him on the show, so that'll be great. But they were courting Jay far before all this stuff started. When and even when it looked like Dave was going to get the Tonight Show handed to him. Right before he left, right at the 11th hour, there was an offer that was sent over to Olvitz's office, and they were, going through it and all that stuff. CBS was ready to jump on Jay, and so beforehand, and
but that doesn't mean they would have gotten him, Mike. Just because they throw out an offer, like ask Leno, he's still never worked anywhere but NBC ever.
Right?
He wouldn't have gone. He would have taken the 12:30 job if it were ever offered to him. But in my understanding, it was never ever offered to him. It was never even thought of, and that to me is what I'm saying is weird.
That's a question that if you ever talk to him again or get him on there, I think that it would be a fascinating question to ask him. If you would have been posed with the idea of a new 11:30 franchise at CBS versus taking over late night, what would you have chosen?
Right.
That's a fascinating question.
Yeah, if it's not 11:30 versus 11:30.
Yeah. I
feel like it's a different regime at that point, and there's not as much bad blood because everything happened sort of the way it should have. I feel like everybody's a little bit more of a team player in that situation. It's not as much animosity that was built in by the kerfuffle.
Agreed.
Yeah, total agreement.
Well,
Rob
you
in Michigan.
Look at how much things have changed these days compared to back then too, especially like back in the day in the 70s, there was a specific template that Dave followed. I mean, he was in Indianapolis, he was a weatherman, he was working in radio. He knew that what he wanted to do is to do what Johnny Carson did. So he moved out to LA, he got work at the Comedy Store and was successful there with people like Jay Leno and Tom Dreesen and Jimmy Walker and Byron Allen and people like that, and he knew that if he could get his big break on Johnny's show, then that would really send him into the stratosphere, and it did. But things today are so different. I mean, with so many channels and so many cable channels and streaming services and people on YouTube and Instagram and all that, and it is just not as clear cut today at all as far as that template that you follow to get into late night television.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everything is. You can have a late night TV show in your dining room if you want to have one these days. It's not as hard to do because it's not as triumphant as it once was. The Johnny Carson show used to get tens of millions of viewers every night because it was on one of the channels, and there wasn't much else to do. People didn't have phones and iPads and personal computers and everything else. You're lucky if you had a calculator to help with your math.
Yeah, it was just such a cash cow for NBC. I mean, the Johnny Carson Tonight Show, and I mean that's how he got $25 million a year and 15 weeks off per year in 1980. He was threatening to go to ABC, and they were courting him. He was hosting the Oscars on ABC, And Johnny was thinking about going over there, but NBC was like, man, you got to hang on to Johnny. This show is a cash cow. We have to do anything we can to keep Johnny on the network.
As expensive as that show was to produce in today's numbers, there were so many people to employ. Jay Leno talks about this all the time too. So many people in the band, in the old Johnny Carson band. All of that stuff aside, the show still accounted for 20% of the network's revenue. One show.
That's nuts.
That's crazy. Yeah, so no wonder he had him by the whatever.
That dynamic's totally different.
That's why he was such a powerhouse. That's why the picture behind Rob there is so cool.
I'm not sure what year it was. I think it was 92, right when Johnny retired. He was a drummer, as you may know, and he really liked Buddy Rich, and he liked Ed Shaughnessy, his drummer for his band. But anyway, Johnny was on the cover of Modern Drummer magazine along with Ed Shaughnessy. I was looking at that article, and it said in there that there was a time when the NBC executives, they wanted to trim down Johnny's band. They said, oh, this is just too many members in Doc's band. We should get rid of some of these guys. Johnny said,
supposedly
no way.
Around the time GE took over, I heard the same thing, and they tried to penny pinch the Tonight Show.
Johnny said, no way. If you cut anybody from that band, I am gone. And so needless to say, nobody was cut and their jobs were safe.
I love it. Oh, I love that. Gosh, that was a big band, though. I mean, that's part of what was that energy. Doc drove that band during those breaks.
It's kind of what's great about that. So many people. Like, that doesn't happen now.
It's like the show was able to be, Johnny was just so, Johnny at the desk, he was just so mellow and wicked too. Even when he was drumming and everything, you could tell his heart rate was a really low resting heart rate, Mr. Tennis and everything. Yep. But the band was always kicking. They were loud and the brass was banging and Ed Shaughnessy, you mentioned, he passed away, I think, recently, but one heck of a fantastic drummer. And I think he was friends with Buddy Rich.
He was Johnny. Amazing. Yeah. Johnny was very good friends with Buddy Rich. I mean, had him on the show a lot. Buddy Rich actually gave Johnny one of his drum sets. And anybody who likes drumming or big band jazz, especially like World War II era big band jazz, which I just love, really, you have to go on YouTube and just put in Buddy Rich Tonight Show drumming, and because they have tons of Buddy Rich appearances on YouTube from the Tonight Show, and they're just fantastic.
I agree. Buddy would come on all the time, but then he would just come on with the drums, and then he would play with the Tonight Show band. You know what I mean? So he'd be the musical guest, but they'd all play together.
That's
sort of like
right.
Paul and the band did. Oh man, I'm with Rob here. Some excellent music.
Yeah, and I wanted to say too, at that comedy museum in Jamestown, they had some really cool Johnny Carson memorabilia there. Like they had in one glass case, they had the Floyd R. Turbo outfit, and then they had the Art Fern outfit right next to one another.
With the wig and
another glass. Yeah, the hair.
Tea Time, another Tea Time movie with Art Fern. And was it Teresa Ganzel?
Yeah, it was Carol Wayne first, and then she was replaced by Teresa Ganzel. That's right.
Carol Ann Wayne, you're right. Carol Ann Wayne, I forgot about her.
Then in this other case, they had, people probably remember the penultimate episode, the second to the last episode, where Bette Midler and Robin Williams were the guests. Bette Midler goes over to center stage and serenades Johnny, and she's wearing this really distinctive dress.
Tic-tac-toe.
That dress was there. Yeah, it had XOXO, and it was black and had like yellow, kind of like sunflowers on it. That dress is there in a case at the Comedy Center, and then also next to that, they have a suit coat that Doc Severinsen wore, like a crazy black and white striped suit coat. So they have some cool memorabilia there.
That the Bette Midler thing. I mean, it's one of the most famous Tonight Show with Johnny Carson clips, period, let alone the fact that it's from the penultimate episode. She sings Set 'Em Up Joe, what's it? One More for the Road.
One More for My Baby and One More for the Road. It's a Frank Sinatra song. Yeah.
Ah, beautiful.
I remember watching that. It was a big deal.
You can't not cry. I mean, the weight of what's happening. 30 years is being wrapped up tomorrow night, but tonight's the party. Oh, my gosh.
My family called us and I was like, watch this.
It's impossible not to. And you see Johnny over there tearing up, too, which Johnny was very good about not showing it.
He was very emotional. And yeah, a lot of people think that was the last episode, but no, the last episode had no guests. It was just a retrospective, Johnny and Ed and Doc just looking back on 30 years. But yeah, definitely that comedy museum is, especially if you're a Carson fan, you've got to go there. And they have a video that they play where they look back on Johnny's career. One thing that stood out from that video is Byron Allen. He went on Johnny's show in 1979. He was only 18 years old. He's the youngest person to do stand-up on Johnny's show. Byron Allen said the comics of his generation, they have 2 birthdays, the day you're born and the day that you appear on Johnny Carson's show. And after that appearance, everything changed for him.
Wow. A little tidbit too from that Byron Allen first appearance. The story, again, I heard it's a rumor. Maybe you know whether this is true or not. That when they first contacted him at, what'd you say, 16 or 18? How old was he?
He was 18 years old, yeah.
Supposedly, he said, not right now, I'll get back to you in a couple weeks. He wanted a couple weeks to work on whatever it was, and he said no, but yes. And they were like, I mean, all right. And apparently they did, and that's he came back and did apparently what is his first appearance, and as Rob just said, the rest is history.
Yeah, and he grew up like hanging around NBC Burbank because his mother worked there. So as a little kid, she would bring him there, and he was seeing Johnny Carson being taped. He was seeing Don Rickles doing CPO Sharky. They did Alice there. They did Midnight Special, Laughing. So many iconic shows were done at NBC Burbank. So he was into all that. He was writing as a teenager. He was writing for comedians at the Comedy Store, like Jimmy Walker. And he knew David Letterman and Jay Leno and Tom Dreesen because they were all at the Comedy Store.
I knew the Comedy Store stuff, but I didn't know he had the childhood at NBC. That's very, very cool because if because your mom works in the building, you have then stood on that spot or walked out through those curtains, even with no lights on or anything else. There's a weird familiarity when you're doing it for real, and you're not. You know what I mean? That's kind of an interesting.
There's a different vibe that you're more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I used to see Byron all the time and did not know the backstory. So
he's definitely self-made. We know that.
But he's really contained and polished in a approachable way.
Yeah. Didn't he buy the Weather Channel? Wasn't that him?
He did. He's an extremely wealthy, extremely successful businessman. Yeah, he has a company that makes a lot of syndicated TV shows that are aired on stations all over the country. It's called Entertainment Studios. He owns several TV stations, and yes, he does own the Weather Channel. So he's worth, I think, $500 million or something like that. He's up in the Letterman Leno stratosphere as far as wealth.
Whoo-wee. All right, Rob, we have gone over on the time. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we say goodbye here? You're welcome here anytime. You can call in anytime. I mean, you could be our resident expert. You seem to have the encyclopedic knowledge.
Oh, well, thank you so much. No, I don't really have anything else to say. I just, I'm really glad to be able to be on the show, and I've been a fan of what you do for a long time.
Oh, thanks, buddy. And then maybe we'll both do a shout out for Don Giller. Are you a fan of Don Giller's?
Oh, definitely. Oh, man. Yeah, I've watched countless YouTube videos that he's put up. Yeah, nobody knows more about Dave than he does. Yeah,
I agree on that one. As far as time wasted on YouTube, it's unquantifiable. How many hours, days, weeks, months? I mean, Don's could probably tell me. He probably has the metric on it. How many times our IP addresses have watched his content?
Yeah.
Holy crap. If you add it up, it's got to be 100 times versus what we've watched on the official Letterman channel because it's so new. Anyway, Rob, thank you so much for being here. You are welcome anytime. Open invite. Seriously, if there's ever anything you either want to talk about or if you ever just want to join in one time with me and Mike. Also, it sounds like in the future there will be other opportunities. I realize what show I'm hosting here and what we're doing right now, but in the future, if there's ever a show with me and Mike, you're welcome on that one anytime as well. But in the meantime, this one with me and Nicole, you're definitely welcome here as well.
Oh, thank you very much.
Mike, I'm losing my shit over here, buddy. All right, Letterman podcast tomorrow. The guest is Candy Chisholm.
Yes, sir. And then we've got some big ones coming up. Sue Hom is coming up. Patrick Farmer is coming up. Both going to be fantastic episodes, and we're working on a few behind the scenes as well. Howard Stringer being one of them, but there's
That would be
a few others that
insane.
we're working on too.
That would be insane. When you get Pat Farmer there, I'm pretty sure he probably was one of the people who had to deal with my little childhood mistake over here.
We will talk about that.
You what's that?
We will talk about that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Anyway, I love you, buddy. Rob Cates, we love you. Okay.
Thank you so much. You too.
I love you. We love you at home. Please love one another. Thanks so much for watching on the YouTube. Thanks for watching on the Instagram. Let's see. Please follow the Letterman podcast. Obviously, Shazam Mike up there. You got Rob Cates on Facebook and all of his. Let's see. Let's run down at least some of them. You've got the Rat Pack group.
Yeah. Memories of the Rat Pack. I have the Johnny Carson fan club. I have David Letterman fans. Another one is 40 plus years of Saturday Night Live. My newest one is just called Comedy in America, but that one doesn't have a lot of members, but it's growing. So definitely Rat Pack, Johnny Carson, and David Letterman are my biggest pages. And some of those I started, some of them I'm the co-administrator, but I'm the main person who posts on there. And I really enjoy having those groups because we meet a lot of like-minded people and we can post a lot of cool stuff on there.
A lot of other Master Control nerds like ourselves. I love that stuff.
Yeah, there we go.
I love that stuff. You think you're in production until you get to Master Control and you're like, oh, they're pushing the real. They're the ones who actually get the shit on the air. All right. Tomorrow we'll be up at GVBC. Saturday, holy crap, it's Super Saturday. There's so much stuff going on. Guido Cocomello, Zuffenhausen, our friend Christian James Hand's got a show. Lots of things happening. Next week we're back with Rod Emery. Speaking of a good car show, Rod Emery is going to be here. You all know who he is. So that's what's going on. We love you, like I said. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned. Tom Snyder is next. Good night, everybody. Have a great weekend.